All right, folks. It is 6 o'clock. I'm going to call this legislative budget hearing to order. Megan, could you call the roll?
Coert, Crane, Esri,
Here.
Farney,
Here.
Figueroa Dixon, Fava, Fortato, Hanauer Friedman,
Here.
Lakshan,
Here.
Pugh, Rodriguez, Rogers, Shell,
Here.
Settles, Sexton,
Here.
Solard, Vantage Theranaut,
Here.
Wiggs, Wilson, Ares,
Here.
Cagle, Locke.
Here.
All right, thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Okay, so moved by Lakshan, second by Esri. Can't. Oh, that's right. Excuse me. We'll just go forward with this agenda because we don't have quorum. So, yeah, it seems like we're having that issue lately. I don't quite understand that, but okay. Yes, Ms. Lakshan.
Can I ask just for my own clarification, since we're down a member, quorum is still 12 at this point? I just wanted to check.
Yep.
The majority of 21.
Yep. All right. I have no slips. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to bring forward public input? Seeing none, we will move on. Budget presentations. First up, Children's Advocacy Center. Go ahead, Travis.
Real quick, I just want to reminder that the first day of 3 right now, no decisions will be made through these presentations. They're just discussion only. So in the end of September, we'll have the special budget meeting where you guys will make any decisions on budget requests and stuff. So no decisions right now.
Thank you, Travis. All right, now we do have quorum, but we're not going to be voting on anything regardless. So, all right. Thank you, Dr. Lisa.
Does it come up?
Hey, Megan.
Good evening. I'm going to talk about Children's Advocacy Center, but I'll tell you who I am for those of you who might be new to the board that may have not met me. I'm Lisa Liggins Chambers. I'm the executive director, and I'm going to talk briefly about our budget for FY27. If at any time you have any questions, please let me know. One of the goals for me for FY27 was to make all of our grant reporting easier for all of you, which is why you'll notice a lot of my bullet points. I think that we are heavily grant-based, and it can be confusing for a lot of people to understand our structure. So one of the things that I want you to remember is that I am dealing with 2 different fiscal years. So I'm dealing with July 1st through June 30th, and I'm also dealing with January 1st to December 31st to complicate things even further. So this year, I think we're very blessed. We don't have a lot of needs. Obviously, last time we met, the biggest need was to move into this beautiful government building, but also we needed the partitions, which if you have not been there, come upstairs and see what you voted on because it's great. We would like to, if all possible, if you look at highlights, start the conversations with all of you about CAC transitioning to the state's attorney's office and making that official. The reason that I want to start having that conversation with all of you is for financial stability. If you just kind of take a look at our budget from FY26 to FY27, you know, you can see that we gain some, we lose some. So sometimes with our grants, they're not always as steady. Going to the state's attorney's office would offer that stability, especially possibly for my salary, because my salary is the biggest problem at CAC other than the fact that we were paying rent. And actually, I heard from one of the grantors recently, the Attorney General's office, and they do not want to pay for my salary. So we're having to redo all of our grants now, amend them because I don't deal necessarily with the clients, so they don't want to pay it. So we're having some problems there. For FY27, we've already done our budget. And I can tell you that DCFS increased by just a little bit, 1% this year. We did not get any increases with VOCA. VOCA is our federal grant. And the Attorney General grant, which is Victims of Crime, VCVA, it decreased by $1,650, so 4%. So as you can see, we're in some of our grants, we are still losing, you know, some of our grant money. Sorry, I'm catching something. So for FY27, again, we're going to have to make some amendments. The Attorney General is willing to work with me if I can't make any adjustments for my own salary. However, please know for FY28, that is coming up. For FY28, additional reductions are anticipated. Number one, DCFS, a minimal increase is expected. As you can see, they only raised us 1%. So I'm thinking that either they won't increase us or it might be just by 1% again. The federal grants, we are not getting any increases. We did not get one for I believe 26, and we didn't get one for 27 either. So my thought on that is we probably won't get one for FY28. I don't know what's going to happen with mental health board, but I wanted you to know that we did return over $15,000 or 24% of our grant, of our award to the mental health board, but we were able to use 75% of our grant. For the Attorney General, I expect, so let me go back to the Mental Health Board. So, you know, Mental Health Board for, as far as our award for FY28 is open. I'm not sure, you know, what's going to happen with that, but I wanted you to know that we did return $15,000. The Attorney General grant, again, is VCVA. That one dropped to over 2%. That one dropped $1,200, and that is one that's decreasing every year. And United Way, I already know, is going to decrease by 20% for FY28. So the numbers that you see for FY27, for FY28, they're going to go, our fund balance is going to go down again. And that's the end of my presentation.
Any questions? Go ahead, Jenny.
Thank you for being here with us tonight, Dr. Lisa. Last year was the first year that y'all tried reaching out to police departments and asking for an increase in contributions. How was that received, and do we think that maybe that might be the reason the United Way grant is going down, or no, unrelated?
Unrelated. Once our law enforcement agencies know their own budgets, then they can start issuing checks to us. It goes up and down. We just don't know. Obviously, it has increased. I go visit the offices. I talk to the mayors. I talk to, other politicians. I talk to law enforcement, and I believe we are going to have more money from law enforcement for FY27. We just haven't received those checks yet, and it is unrelated to United Way. United Way is decreasing because we actually do not need $7,500 probably for FY28. So I decided to, when I applied, to just let them know they can decrease it if they need to for another agency.
And then going back to your kind of request or strong urge or whatever for us to transition you into the state's attorney's office, is the idea that your salary would then just become fully paid by the county through that office, and then the grants do all the other work?
Yes, I'm hoping that's what happens. It's difficult because somehow the state, DCFS, and the feds, VOCA, and the Mental Health Board, and also United Way have graciously been funding CAC, but in particular the executive director's salary, but not doing direct service with the kids, the clients. They're starting to pay attention to that part.
Okay. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Ellie?
Hi.
Hi.
So just to clarify, the potential move to the state's attorney's office and your salary with that, you want us to consider that for fiscal year 28, right?
Yes, please.
Okay, but
Yes.
not 27.
No, not. Unless you want to do it for 27, that would be great.
Just want to clarify that we're looking at.
I think the
28.
Attorney General's office will work with me, I'm told. If I can't move my salary from them because it would cause a problem with our other grants, but they would like for me to try now. And so we were working on that today. So I know for a fact it's becoming a problem.
Okay, and then since the expenditures are greater than the revenue, is that your salary that's doing that?
It is my salary.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so you're dipping into fund balance then
Yes.
for 27. Okay,
It's definitely my salary. And of course, I have to, this is social services, so I have to pay my staff nicely in order to keep them happy and to keep them working as hard as they do. And so I'm also having to increase their salaries as well. And, because they work with kids, it's a lot easier to move and amend their salaries and to increase them with the grants. It's a lot harder to do it for my salary.
Other questions? Dan.
How many gens these days? Hi, Dr. Lisa.
Hello.
So I was actually wondering, you noted the 15,926 regarding the mental health board. Was that something that had to be returned because of not being used? I just kind of wanted to understand because I was kind of confused by the wording.
I'm going to think of how to say this properly. One of the things that I just mentioned was that I like to make sure my staff is paid properly. If I can't do a raise, sometimes I like to do a bonus in lieu of a raise. There were other needs that we had. However, Julia, who is actually oversees me, thought it was a good idea to just return it to the mental health board if we could not use it.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for that.
Well, it made sense. since they have their own financial needs right now,
Yeah. Yeah.
she just thought it was a good idea to go ahead and just return it.
Wow. Well, thank you for your service and thank you for doing that. I hope you get
You're
what you
welcome.
need soon.
Questions? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next up is GIS Consortium and Fund. Leanne?
Just a quick overview, because I'm not in front of this board very often. My name is Leanne Brehab-Riley. I'm the director of the Champaign County GIS Consortium. The Champaign County GIS Consortium is a joint venture. It was created in 2002. It has 8 member agencies. Those include, obviously, the county, the city of Champaign, the city of Urbana, the University of Illinois, the village of Mahomet, village of Savoy, village of Rantoul, and the village of St. Joseph. The consortium's mission we provide member agencies and county residents with high-quality regional geographic information system, data, services, and services that improve cooperation, cohesiveness, and efficiency within and among the member agencies. Per the intergovernmental agreement that created the Champaign County GIS Consortium, the policy committee was established to provide oversight of the consortium. This budget has already been approved by that committee. The budget is being presented to you all because the county is currently the lead agency of the consortium. So highlights this year are pretty much just capital and technology purchases are based on a 5-year capital and technology plan. For FY 2027, that appropriation is a little over $104,000. The anticipated decrease in the fund balance is due to these planned expenditures. And then new this year, or new in 2026, and will continue on for the next 6 years, is the consortium entered a 6-year agreement with EagleView, which is an ortho and oblique imagery vendor. So for the duration of the agreement, revenue in the aerial ortho department shall be collected and expensed in the same year. So incoming funds will no longer be deferred, as has been the practice, since 2002. So that's been a change for us this year. But other than that, I don't really have any questions. Or I don't have any, thing else to present. So if you all have questions, just let me know.
Anybody have any questions? Dan?
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for coming out. So I was wondering, last year, there was a budget for, I guess this is the right one, I hope. There was a budget for commodities that was about 11,200. And that was actually what was ended up being projected for fiscal year 26. And it looks like there was a large decrease in the budget for it for 27. Is that because it's being compensated for by another area, or is there less of a need at this moment for commodities?
We're just going to have to do without. I mean, insurance is killing us, so. I mean, with insurance premiums going up 30%,
Yeah.
we have to make cuts someplace.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you so much.
Questions? Sure. Thank you. All right, moving on, County Board of Health.
Hold on, there's a second GIS fund that
excuse me.
I'm going to present real quick.
Thank you.
So the county has to pay into the consortium, and we have a separate fund for that. Revenue for fees for documents filed in the recorder's office. go into this fund, and that pays for our membership and the ESRI software costs. We recently, if you guys remember, did a cost study and increased fees, I think starting January 1 maybe, from $15 to $25. Fees hadn't been increased for many years. Back when the real estate market was going a little bit smoother, it wasn't an issue, but since that slowed down, fund balance has decreased year over year for a while. So these fees will, in theory, keep the revenue in pace with the expenditures going forward. It's something that we'll need to start monitoring a little bit more often instead of every 10 years. So any questions on this fund?
Thanks, Travis. All right, now Board of Health, Dr. Tunkara.
And while he's walking up, we talked earlier, and there's a little part of the Board of Health that I'm going to explain real quick, and then I'll pass it over to him. Over the last several quarters, I've been working with the Board of Health on fund balance, trying to figure out what a good, fund balance would be in order to make sure that they have enough cash flow in case there's some emergencies, but still be able to spend the money that they need to spend. Last week during the Board of Health meeting, we had a long conversation, and it's not reflected in these slides, but the decision was made that the Board of Health is going to put a little bit more money into their contingency budget this year, just in case there's emergencies. Now, that's really not going to affect the county's budget at all because that would be a fund balance. It would come out of fund balance. So, but there is going to be an increase to their contingency line item in case of emergencies, and they and I will continue to work together over the next year, next however long it takes, to figure out what will be a good fund balance going forward, what would be good emergency funds, what would happen in case of an emergency, especially during times when their fund balance is low because they're waiting for property tax disbursements. So just wanted to explain that real quick. Now I will pass it over.
All right. Thank you so much. Grateful to be here. I just want to quickly introduce myself. Mamadou Tunkara, Public Health Administrator. Got appointed on February 3rd, early this year. Probably 6-8 months in, but I'm really grateful to be here. Just want to share a few highlights of the work that we do at Public Health, and I will be happy to take any questions after that. So we are currently working on a grant, food access specialist, and this has come up with the food summit that we organized in the county. So we secure a grant and we hire someone who is a lead on that, and the main goal is to be a consortium and convening all the community health organizations that work in food arenas to make sure that there's a space where they can share needs and also provide services to help each other. So we have that going on. So we also have in other positions that we called Community Network Anchor. And so this person also would work closely with family-run organizations with mental health needs and serve as a community lead and try to identify needs in the community that we can support in those arenas. But beside that, we did a huge renovations on our basement to make sure that we have a safe place for people during emergency, especially during weather event, storms and flooding. So The hour of operations are only during our normal business hours, just so the staff can assist those folks who needed help. The main target for that is two groups. The first is our homeless populations, so that they have a safe place to go during weather event and tornadoes and floodings. The second group is our mobile home resident. So we noticed that there is a lot of need for that community for a safe place during storms, shelters. We also allow during that time period when there is emergency that they can bring their pets, service dogs in the building, so that because we realize that most people would not be able to come to the shelter if you tell them that they can bring their pets or service dogs. So those are a few highlights for public health. We really want to thank the board for approving our budget if they decided to do so. And I'm open for any questions. Just really quick.
Do you have any questions for Dr. Kakara? It looks like you get off without. Oh, all right. Ms.
All
Lockshin.
right. Okay, I would love to know a little bit more about the shelter space that you're working on. I know it's not strictly budget related, but is that I guess how do you decide when to keep that open? Is it just a threat of severe weather, or okay?
Yeah, that's a very great question. So earlier this year, so we had a lot of weather event, and we realized that there's no safe place for people to go. So we had some students from the U of I who reached out to public health, and we really decided with our board. I want to thank our board members. So there's 2 board members here in the room. So I really want to thank them for their help. But they were able to allow us to renovate our basement, build the basement, and the main purpose of that is to make sure that during hour of operations that our staff can help staff the shelter. So the first and the criteria for opening the shelter is during when we get alert from our county emergency team that there is a weather event that can be life-threatening for our residents. So we would open the shelter during hour of operations. But if the weather event extended beyond hour of operation, will still be open because we will be in the building until
Right.
it's
So you won't
subsidized.
kick people out at 5 o'clock if your hours are over, but the threat remains.
Yeah,
That's I think with over 200 confirmed tornadoes so far in Illinois this year, that's really important to have for this community. So great work.
thank you.
Please do.
I'm Dr. Krista Jones. I'm the chair of the County Board of Health. I just wanted to add that's part of why we're asking for that additional change. Right now, we're looking at 25 to 35% of fund balance. We've been bringing that up. When I first got on, we were in the 15-20 range, so we're making great progress with that. And we want to maintain a level there. But right now, I only have access to $15,000 to release funds in any kind of an emergency situation. So increasing that in the totality to 75 this year, and then we'll look at any additional changes in the future years, because we're not going to be able to count on federal funding should we have a pandemic or an outbreak of any kind or an emergency in this area that we need to help our residents in the county with. We will not have immediate access to funding. Otherwise, we'd have to come back to the board, and depending on your schedules and the timing and the business schedules of the week, it could take a couple of weeks before we get access to that funding. So this will allow us to be able to do those things in emergencies to meet the needs of our citizens.
Thank you.
Any additional questions?
Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jeff, I think you're up next.
I've got something to say before highway as well. This should
Right
be the
ahead.
last department that I have to speak before. One thing that I want to make the board aware on the highway fund this year, Steve and I worked with Jeff, and he was very helpful in working with us. Historically, for a property tax levy, the highway fund increases by the same amount, same percentage roughly, that the county's overall overall levy increases. For 27, since the general fund is in the shape that it's in, the highway fund, not the bridge fund or the match fund, but the regular highway fund, that levy we're planning on keeping flat, and what would have normally been increased in there will go into the general fund's revenue for at least this one levy year. So thanks for working with us, Steph.
And I hope that's a one-year deal, not a multi-year deal. But we have a pretty good fund balance in the highway fund, although you can see there going into 26 over 5 million and right around 5 million in FY27. But that money has been set aside for purposes. We have a pretty good chunk of the nursing home that's being torn down that we've agreed to pay for, because we're going to actually be able to use that property in order to build a new cold storage facility next to the highway department. And the cold storage facility is going to run somewhere around a $3 million price tag. So that's $3.75 million. You take that off of that fund balance, and we're getting down to, $1 million or $2 million fund balance. So, which is what we absolutely have to have in case we have some kind of emergency that comes up. So, but I've got multiple funds that we work with. We got the highway fund, which I'll start off with. This is our personnel and operating fund. Basically, it pays all of our employees. That's about $2.6 million of the total expenditures out of this fund. So it also operates, we buy equipment with it, we turn the lights on, we buy fuel, we buy parts for vehicles that for us and for the rest of the county fleet as well. So some of the highlights there that are in the slide. $50,000 line item. What we're going to do is we're going to do the actual restoration of the old nursing home site after it's been torn down, and the contractor does the site work that was required in the RFP. We've still got this Wilbur Avenue project hanging out there. I did get good news today, though. We actually finally got our preliminary site investigation from our consultant. So we actually know what's out there, what contaminants are out there. Yes, there's contaminants out there. There's no doubt about it. But it wasn't as bad as I had been scared of. So, and we do have a $250,000 grant to cover that, as we've been working with DCEO. Darlene Kloppel got that when she was here, and Steve and I have been filling out the paperwork to continue to get that moved from year to year. We have a deal with the Village of Savoy on a IGA for $862,500 for our share of the Curtis Road project, which is a huge project. That's tens of millions of dollars. So our share of it is relatively small. We made that commitment way back in like 2002, 2003. As far as being committed to that project, we paid for all the different stages of it, all the way from 45 going over to 57 and on over to Staley Road. So this is the piece that's left to actually do it from 45 over to First Street, and they're going to build a roundabout, and they're going to obviously build the bridge for the railroad to go over the viaduct. So that's going to be a big project coming up here in the near future. We do have a sub-fund of the highway fund, which is kind of our 083, 062, which is kind of our building fund. Once we paid off our building, when we bonded for it, after we paid it off, we started putting money aside to actually take care of the building in case we had any events that might be, very expensive, like a boiler system go down. We got a new roof when it hailed, so that was good. We don't have to worry about a roof for quite a while. And then some of our other major expenses there at the bottom, $200,000 for fuel. I hope that pays for it. Fuel prices just keep going up. Diesel's a lot more than unleaded is that most people use in their vehicles. You know, it's over $5 a gallon. So, and we do use a lot of fuel, particularly in the winter when we're plowing snow. And then we are in need of new equipment. We try to keep our equipment on a 10 to 15 year rotating basis so that we got stuff that's in good shape that we can go out there and take care of the roads with. So we got roughly $500,000 there in new equipment. So that's kind of the county highway fund. I don't know if you want me to take questions on each fund or just go through them all and then come back at the end for total questions.
I think just take questions and we'll filter through what board members have. So,
Okay.
Does anybody have any? Okay, Chair Locke.
So you may or may not remember, about 2 years ago, I had asked you how much we save when we have nice, not snowy winters, and you said about $300,000. And it was snowy this year, wasn't it?
It sure was.
How big was the hit we took with that between snow and increased fuel prices?
I would say a couple $100,000. That the fuel comes out of the highway fund, but the salt actually comes out of the motor fuel tax fund. We have another very unique situation this year with our salt. The state, through the Department of Central Management Services, bids our salt, and they do a statewide bid. Well, they put out the statewide bid in July or whenever they do it, and a whole bunch of the municipalities, counties, local agencies, IDOT didn't even get a bid for salt this year. So now we're into an emergency procurement through the state, and they're trying to get these suppliers to give us emergency procurement, which obviously anytime you go into something like that, the prices are going to go up. I think they do that on purpose. Because it happened a few years ago. We ended up getting salt, but it was $20, $30 more a ton than we were paying the year before. Last year was like $93 a ton for salt, and we usually buy like 3,500 to 4,000 tons.
And we don't have a lot left from last year, right?
We actually do. Yes, we have a pretty good size. I'd say we got 3,000 tons in our salt dome right now. So if everything goes to heck, we can make it happen. We just won't be able to put as much salt out as we normally would. But we do have a decent balance of salt in our salt dome right now. But we always like to come into the year with that balance so that these kinds of things happen and we're ready for them. We don't want to be sitting there with no salt in the dome after a winter.
Thank you. And I just want to, on behalf of the board, thank you for your willingness to work with us on the levy this year to try and find a way to balance the books.
Sure.
Greatly appreciative of that.
All right. Yep. All right.
Janice, go ahead.
Yes, thank you for working with us. Sorry, the explanation you gave about the salt bid made me have questions. So what happened? The state puts out a bid for salt, and there are vendors who just choose not to put out a proposal for certain municipalities. They'll just say, well, we'll cover X, Y, Z, but not A, B, C.
That's exactly right. Yeah. They probably have 500 line items in that proposal, and there's usually Cargill, Morton, and there's Compass Materials are the three that typically bid salt in Illinois. And last year we had Compass Materials, we've had Morton before, we've had Cargill before, but it's just like anything else. Let's say I put out a bid for a bridge project and none of the contractors want to do it. They don't bid on it because they got too much stuff going on. There's this, there's a story. There's, too much demand and not enough supply and blah, blah, blah. But, you hear that all the time about different things, whether it be fuel or salt or concrete or asphalt. But the state, I actually emailed the guy who's doing it, and he said they're working through the emergency procurement process, and they do anticipate having a number for us. Okay. And the thing is, once we go into the emergency procurement process, he says, what you get is what you get. You can't go in and then you get a price and go, we don't really want to do it then. So, but the price that I got from a local vendor was $156 a ton, which was up, that's 75% higher than last year. So I felt like the emergency procurement process was probably a better deal for us. I hope that comes to be true.
Well, fingers crossed for a light snow year.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Further questions?
Any other thing for the highway fund? All right, we'll move on to the bridge fund. So You can see we got a decent fund balance, but as you can see in one of my bullet points, we have 25 bridge projects in the queue right now. And if you follow prices in the construction indices, bridge prices are just going up and up and up, just like everything else. Those 25 bridge projects probably represent somewhere around $15 million. Obviously, we don't have anywhere near $15 million in our county bridge fund, but our county bridge fund is also, you know, kind of a matching fund. We do use it to 100% build bridges. We use it to match township bridge program funds. We use it to match federal dollars. We use it to match state dollars. We just try to stretch it as far as we possibly can based on the grants that we can get for the projects that we're doing. So you can see in that fourth bullet point, there's various funding streams that we're applying for. There's this local bridge program fund, which is a federal fund. They did this state bridge bundling thing a year ago. We got 5 bridges out of that are going to be built in the next few years. It's actually going to be 100% state funds coming out of that. There's a special bridge fund, which is a competitive fund that you have to apply for every year. And it's for any bridge that's over $1 million, which is about every bridge out there anymore. There's not too many of them. But that used to be a big deal 20 years ago if it was bridge was over $1 million. But now it just seems like that's just run-of-the-mill type of bridge that you don't even know you're driving over when you're out in the country, unless there's a flood like we had last week. But and then there's a township bridge program. That's what TBP stands for. They got this state local project funding, which we got 2 projects out of that. We got some match money for the Country Club Road Bridge, and we got a bridge up on Hensley Road, County Road 20, paid for out of that. And then we have the County Bridge Fund. So it's, you know, just like you do at home when you're trying to figure out how you're going to pay your bills, you just kind of got to figure out which fund you can use on which projects and try to stretch the money as far as you can, because we're not only using this money to pay the construction of the projects, we're also using it to design it, you know, and do all the paperwork leading up to the project as well. So there is, in that last bullet, they keep telling us there's going to be this state notice of funding opportunity coming that's going to be millions and millions and millions of dollars that's going to be competitive funding that the counties are going to be able to apply for. So that's why we have 25 bridges in the queue, because I'm hoping maybe we'll get 5 or more bridges out of that deal if we can get some good candidates in there when we do that. So this fund was originally put together to match township bridges when it was put in as a statute, but now it's just being used for a lot of different things because there's just so many different ways you can fund bridges that weren't around back when the statute was written for the County Bridge Fund. So anybody have any questions related to that fund?
Go ahead, Ms. Locke, or Lockshin.
Election,
Wrong.
yes. Do you get much cooperation from state level and federal representatives for this area to help, I guess, procure the funds from these various?
All the money that I'm showing up there is not anything where you go ask for support from the legislature. It's money that you're either applying for based on a competitive funding, or it's money that is out there that since we have 523 bridges in Champaign County. You wouldn't know that. That's township and county because we're responsible for the design and oversight and inspection of also the township bridges. So there's 1,600 miles of township roads, and you know, almost every mile there's a farm ditch going across the county or a township road. So we have a lot of need because we have so many bridges. So we're usually very competitive in all these grants that we're applying for, but we don't necessarily have the great big projects that you see that go to Washington, D.C., and you're going to do a $20 million project or something like that. Ours are pretty, you know, $500,000 to $2 million is about the general range of our projects.
So it's generally your staff
Yes.
that's doing the application?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Go ahead, Den.
Hi, thank you for coming out here. So how long does a project usually last for the bridges?
I used to say we could build a bridge. If I started designing it today, we could build it next year. Now, it's more of a 2 to 3 year process because of all the federal paperwork and all the stuff, the hoops that you have to jump through in order to just get the bridge to the point where you can actually let it. Once you let a bridge and a contractor is awarded the bridge, depending on the size of the bridge, it's 3 to 6 months to actually build the bridge. And then it takes another 6 months to a year to close it all out, get all the paperwork and pay the contractor fully and get all the clearances from the state. So from start to end, probably 3 to 4 years from the time we conceive that, hey, we're going to do this bridge until it's totally done and off of our books is 3 to 4 years.
Wow. Thank you so much for that.
Yep.
And are we far behind on any 60-year life cycles of any bridges, and by how much?
Well, if you think about, if we have 523 bridges in our county, right? So a bridge usually lasts 60 years. That's doing a lot of bridges every year. So have we been keeping up with that? Not necessarily, but the good news is that the newer bridges that we're building are lasting longer than they used to because we're using either stainless steel or we're using galvanized steel or we're using what they call like a self-rusting steel. The concrete's better than it used to be. The rebar's better than it used to be. Unfortunately, some of the bridges we're replacing right now are only like 40 years old. But we're replacing them with things that if they test them in a lab are lasting somewhere between 70, 80, 90 years old and up to 100 years old. So if we can get them to last longer, obviously that spreads our money out.
And my last question to that is,
Sure.
does it affect the life cycle of any future ones? Like, do you get to write down, hey, this one I can do in 100 years maybe?
Well, so we're responsible for inspecting the bridges on an annual basis or a 2-year basis, depending on the condition of the bridge. And we actually, for the county system, we have a they call it dynamic infrastructure, where we send all of our pictures in and they actually analyze the bridge every time we inspect it with the pictures. And we have a drone now that we fly underneath the bridges because you're supposed to be within arm's length of any unit on the bridge. And some of these bridges are pretty tall. We don't really have the equipment, the scaffolding, or the snooper truck or anything like that to do that. So we bought a drone so we can get right up in there and take pictures, and then we can send them to this dynamic infrastructure, and they can model the bridge for us and kind of give us an idea if there's anything that's going wrong. And yes, and then they can do a life cycle cost analysis off of those. So it's pretty cool.
That's actually really cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that.
You bet.
Jeff and his staff have done an excellent job in terms of not only the bridges, but in terms of maintaining our roadways as well. I mean, very proactive, and yeah, they are keeping up. So, but it's a challenge with
always a
all the miles and all the bridges. Any more questions for Jeff?
All right, we got motor fuel tax here. So every time you go to the pump, pay a little money into the state motor fuel tax fund, and that money comes back to the municipalities, townships, counties, in allocations. Champaign County, you can see up there, depends on how much fuel people buy in a given year, so you can't really know exactly what you're going to get in a given year, but it's somewhere $4 to $4.5 million per year. And motor fuel tax money comes back to the county. We had what they called the Rebuild Illinois program a few years ago, where we got like $6 or $8 million, and we were able to use that money, which helped us kind of store up some of our motor fuel tax money. So we have a decent balance right now, but you can see we have a $6 million for infrastructure improvements. It should say 2026 instead of 2025. I was reusing an old slide. I got caught there. County Road 6 from Monticello Road to Seymour is currently under construction. That's the $6 million there. And then we're going to be doing Monticello Road, or Sedoris Road from Monticello Road down to Sedoris in 2027. And if you're just to do a simple cold in-place recycling, which is kind of our mainstay now with a 3-inch overlay, and we widen the shoulders and we do asphalt shoulders to try to make the road safer. It's about $1 million a mile, and we have 200 miles of road. So do the math, $200 million. And roads usually last 20 years, although we're doing better with those as well. So we should be investing about $10 million a year. We're not. We don't have that kind of money, but we're doing a better job of making our roads last longer. So when we look at our pavement management system, I know some of you are familiar with that. Some of you probably have no idea what I'm talking about, but they got a curve on there that shows how the roads deteriorate over time. And when I first got here and we first started doing the pavement management system, that deterioration curve kind of fell off really bad about 14 or 15 years out, which means at that point the road's shot. We got to do something with it, or we're going to get a lot of complaints, a lot of potholes. We're going to spend a lot of money on maintenance on that road. We're able to push that out now to 18 to 20 years, and we're looking at trying to get it out even farther with some of the maintenance that we're doing and some of the construction stuff that we're doing now. So if we can do that, we can make our dollar stretch longer, obviously. So the MFT fund is basically used to build roads and bridges. That's 95% of the fund. It pays my salary too, so that's the other small part of not small, but it's another part of it as well. So. And we do maintenance with that. So we buy our rock, we buy our oil, we buy our culverts, we pay contractors to stripe the roads, to seal coat the roads, that kind of thing. So it's about $1 million per year roughly in maintenance on the county roads too. So that's my stick for MFT. Any questions on that one?
JJ?
Not a question, but more of just a compliment. If you drive around the county, you can tell if you're on a county-owned highway or a state-owned highway very easily. Our roads are maintained far, far better than the state roads are. So thank you, Jeff, and thank you.
Got a lot in your area done, so you're kind of you're out of the loop for a while.
I'm riding on almost all new roads, but when you compare it to the Sydney-St. Joe Road, which it's easier to just drive on a gravel trail than that road anymore, it really shows up. So thank you to you and your team there.
Ed?
How are the heavy weights of the trucks now affecting the repair schedule on the roads?
County roads, it's not too bad. Township roads, it's horrible. We get weight permits for 150,000, 200,000, 250,000 because the state, if you've noticed I-74, they just keep hitting those bridges that go over I-74. And those big loads can't get under the bridges until they rebuild those bridges and raise them up and do some work out there. So guess where those heavy loads go? They put them out on the local system. And we basically have to accept them. The county roads are built pretty well. I'm not going to complain about the county roads. I think we can take about any load that an interstate can take. But the township roads, which they shouldn't be using unless it's their last, destination point, can't hold up those kinds of weight, especially when it's hot out and you're driving on a seal coat road and it starts peeling up or it's really wet like it's been and the base gets saturated. The road in front of your house is horrible. And that's a village road, for gosh sakes. It used to be a township road, but so you can see what it does to them. But the county roads, I think, are doing pretty good.
Any election?
How do you prioritize which roads get repaired with the limited funds that you have?
So that's the pavement management system that I talked about. So there's a local company called Applied Research Associates that we partnered with back in 2008. And see, Lorraine's not here. I think she was the only one on the board back then when we brought the fancy van out. They got a van that counts cracks and takes pictures and movies and videos, and they measured the deflection of the roadways, and it gives us an overall view. They call it a pavement condition index, 0 to 100. Anything 70 and above is pretty good. I like to be average of 75 on our county roads. We get something down into the 40, 50, 60 range. We got to start taking a look at it. So we use that system to prioritize our roads is what we do. So it's worked really well for us. That's how we've been able to kind of extend that curve over time as well by using that system. And it's not real expensive, and it's a local company. So I really like working with them.
Any further questions for Jeff? Dan?
So I noticed that last year the county road of Monticello to Seymour, I believe, was on the budget. What was just kind of a basic overview timeline? When did that start? It looks like it's already underway, but just wanted to know.
It started in June or so when we started construction because we had to do the cold in place recycling first, which is they come in and grind up the road, put it back through a paver, lay it back out, roll it back out, and stabilize it. Then that has to sit for 3 to 4 weeks because there's moisture in that pavement because that's how they get it to stick together with oil and water. They say oil and water doesn't mix, but it helps the pavement. So it has to sit there literally and dry out before they can put the asphalt, because once you put asphalt on top of it, that seals it up, and you don't want that moisture trying to get out of there after you seal it up. So they've done the binder course, which is the first layer of asphalt, and they're going to start the surface course on Wednesday. I'd say that road will be done 3 or 4 weeks probably when it'll all be said and done. We still got to grind the rumble strips, still got to paint it. There's still work that needs to be done even after the asphalt's laid down. Do some shoulder work. So.
Awesome, thank you. And that was budgeted from last year, right?
Yeah, and motor fuel tax fund.
Okay,
Yep.
awesome.
Yep.
Thank you.
I joked with Jeff about Monticello Road because that was a project that I worked on when I still worked in the trades, so it makes me feel
Scary thing is I worked on it too, and we're going to rebuild it in 2029.
Yeah.
I didn't know I'd be here that long, but I'm glad I am.
Have you noticed a decrease in the motor fuel tax with the rise in electric vehicles? Is that, I know there was some talk about that at the state level. Is that being a problem? Is that?
We haven't seen a significant decrease. So the state gets all the money from motor vehicle registration. We don't get a dime of that, and I know they raised the motor vehicle registration for electric vehicles to try to compensate for the lack of motor fuel tax, because they're not buying anything at the pump. But all that money goes to the state. So we haven't seen a significant decrease, even with the cost of fuel going up. People are still driving. I don't know what the percentage of overall vehicles on the road that are electric in the state of Illinois, but I don't think it's high enough to really give us a big problem yet. And 4 years ago, they doubled the motor fuel tax, which was a significant increase for the county. And they actually put an inflation factor on it. Now, sometimes they vote to take that away and not put it on in a given year, but it's in the statute that there's supposed to be an inflation factor on that as well. So that helps out, because we hadn't had a motor fuel tax increase since like 1979 until that point. So that was very helpful.
It was long overdue.
Yeah.
Anyone else with questions for Jeff?
I only got one more, and it's a very quick one. The Highway Federal Aid Matching Fund is what it is by its name. We use this to match federal aid projects. Usually projects are like 80-20 when we get a federal aid project going, and this matches that federal dollars. So you can see we've got $1.5 million appropriated for Monticello Road in 2029, anticipating that we'll have that much of a fund balance come that time. We're not spending any money this year. When you're getting $180,000 a year and you need a couple million to match, you got to save it up for 8 or 10 years before you can really use it. But that's what we do with that fund. It's match federal dollars. That's all I got.
All right. Any further questions for Jeff at all? Beth?
What do we do with those appropriated funds when we're not spending them? Are they part of the general fund? Do they get invested? Do they just have to sit there and do nothing?
They sit in our accounts, but they are invested by the investment people with the county, the finance department. So we gain investment income off of those, whether it's motor fuel tax, whether it's bridge, highway, federal aid. We get the interest, and on the motor fuel tax specifically, we have to get the interest back because that's state money, and that money has to be, we get audited by the state every year on those state funds. So if the money is in our account and it makes interest, it comes back to our account.
And it only stays in federal or the highway fund. It does not go anywhere else.
That's correct. So the bridge fund comes back to the bridge fund, the highway fund comes back to the highway fund, blah, blah, blah. All of them get reapportioned back to their appropriate fund. We also manage all the township money too, but you guys don't budget for that. But that's another $5 million a year that we do interest and appropriate back the interest to those funds.
Right. I don't see any other hands, so thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it. Next up is Animal Control, Chelsea Angelo.
That's a tall mic to come after. Hi, I'm Chelsea Angelo. I'm the Director of Champaign County Animal Control. I don't have fancy slides for you. I'm sorry I ran out of time to get the PDFs together for you. I think the most significant thing you're going to want to talk about is the $11,000 budget. And so I just want to point out that part of that being so low is because, we didn't have any payments from our IGAs when we were preparing this. We started discussions with the municipalities to transfer per capita to a hourly and per call rate in about mid-2025, but it's taken us all the way up until this point to really get those IGAs in place through their appropriate boards that they need to go to back to us, and then actually start that billing process. So August will be like our first full billing cycle under our new agreement. So the numbers that I have for you can be very troublesome, and they will be subject to change just because a lot of those monies had not been received by the time we had to put this budget together for you. We're not really going to have a surplus. I've not added any commodities, and really we're not going to be making any real purchases in 27 because we're really trying to get our budget back to a healthy point. We did replace one vehicle this year because we have 4 wardens that are running, and we need to have 4 wardens need 4 vehicles. So going into 28, 29, 30, 32, that's where we're going to see a lot more expenses for vehicles and more budgeting for our facility. But we're not doing any of that in 27 because we need to get through all of our billing cycles and have a very firm idea of where we're at financially with our new agreements. We should be making more than we're making under the per capita. We're already seeing that in what we're billing, but we're not going to really see that until sometime in 2027. Our rabies tag sales have remained largely the same. We were hoping to see some increase with our new software kicking out reminders, but I also think we did that in a time where financially people just don't have as much spending money as they did in the past. That stayed the same. We do want to try continue getting those notices out, continue collecting as much revenue as possible. I don't have any other big changes outside of our change from in how we do our intergovernmental agreements. In that, I will note we brought on Muhammad and St. Joe this year as part of our IGAs that we're contracting with. So we now do cover the entirety of Champaign County. That's going to make us responsible for all of the stray animals, impounding them. It's going to make us responsible for all of the bite quarantines. Also, part of what we have to pay for out of this funding, we have to pay for all rabies testing that's submitted within the county, and we have to pay for rabies anti-serums for victims who have to receive that because of a bite. So we do have some statutory obligations that we do have to pay for, and that's really going into 27, our focus is sheltering staff and then our statutory obligations.
I'm going to add a couple other things. So I really don't think the fund balance is going to go that low. As she mentioned, she had worked with a lot of different other agencies, districts, townships on new IGAs. it's kind of up in the air what that revenue is going to be. We budgeted a little conservatively. We're hoping revenue's higher on that. Chelsea's also been working with the finance staff on collections for vets and other entities to try to get that under control, which should also increase revenue. Expenditures, we budgeted expenditures so they're appropriated so Chelsea could spend them if needed. But we have a plan, Chelsea and I, to kind of watch fund balance on a monthly basis. And she knows, she has to watch her fund balance and won't just be spending. So everything in here is, unless there's a major emergency, worst case scenario, revenue hopefully will be higher. She won't spend all the expenditures, and we're going to be monitoring those as we go. They're just budgeted so they're able to be spent if she needs them.
I would be remiss if I did not talk about the amount of work that Chelsea, Michelle Jett, and our state's attorney's office put into the new IGA structure that we have. It has taken literally over a year. We've still had, even with our city of Urbana, we're still, I think, we have final completion as they finally signed off on it.
It's on the way. Yeah, it's on the way. It went.
Even though the deadline was how many months ago? Yeah. But this structure should provide fair funding for the work that animal control does for the folks in Champaign County. The old structure, which was put in place before I came into office, simply did not do that. So kudos to Chelsea, to Michelle, and to our state's attorney's office for all of their work on this.
Yes, I appreciate all of the work that the executives department put in on this. We really needed to go this direction. It makes sense that you would go per capita. A lot of places do that. But when animal control is absorbing the full cost of everything to service that contract, that's where the wheels were kind of falling off the animal control bus. So we're hopeful. It's looking good. We're able to provide the services that community is wanting. And we want to continue to do that and grow this program. And this was a step in that right direction.
Any questions for Chelsea? Go ahead, Beth.
So how's the new software working out?
I'm sorry, how's what?
The new software working out?
Oh, it's been wonderful. So one of the problems that we had historically at animal control is we could give you the numbers of animals coming in because they literally wrote it down by hashtag. There was no tracking method there. So for any grants that we wanted to go for, any statistical information that I wanted to offer you, the county board, or these municipalities so that they can see what work we really are doing for them, or even the community, I think that that's where this program has best serves us. We can show the work that we are doing. We can track the animals. We can track everything statutorily that we need to be tracking. And we also have the ability to provide the finance department and the board with very clear, open information related to our finances.
Any more questions? Dan?
Hi, thank you for coming out here. So you mentioned that you have statutory obligations that you have to abide by, even despite the intergovernmental agreement.
Correct.
What percentage would you say that is of a typical service that you would do for one of those villages?
For municipalities, it's always going to come back to rabies enforcement. So under the state statute, we have the obligation to ensure quarantine for any animal that has bitten a human. And that doesn't always mean cat or dog. It could be a raccoon because somebody was feeding it a cracker. And under the state statutes, we are responsible for submitting that animal for rabies testing. And if the human goes and gets rabies serum antigens, we're also responsible statutorily to pay for that as well.
And in a typical service would be some revenue, right? At least a little bit.
Correct.
What is there like a percentage that you would say that it is of a typical? So, for example, if you did have to go in and you had to mitigate that type of situation, a rabies situation, Do you by chance know what the cost of that would be for that municipality or that village?
So under the old agreement, they would just pay us a very flat rate of here's your $100,000 a year. And that's spread out over the entire year. So any cost that we incur during that year is wholly on the county to pay for. So in this scenario, if you're responding, you have your warden who is responding and getting that hourly rate with all of your equipment. You then have to euthanize the animal, so that's going to take my license and my FDA license and me to actually do it. Then we have to submit it to the public health, Illinois Department of Public Health for actual testing, and that's going to be another $142. So we're going to absorb all of that cost for every single one of those animals. I think a more appropriate one would be, say a dog is running at large. You have to have the animal, then you have to care for that animal daily. And by statute, we have to hold it 5 days minimum hold time. If it has an owner that has a microchip or a tag, now it's expanded to 7 days. If it's a bite, now it's expanded to 10 days. If it's a hold for court, it's goes on and on and on and on. And as the county, we have to absorb all of that cost. Under the new agreements, we no longer absorb all of that cost.
Very nice. So it probably wouldn't hurt too much to still have to, because statute means we have to pay for those rabies costs and absorb at least those, right?
Correct.
But everything else seems to kind of offset it, so.
Right. So we have to absorb the cost of the care of the animals because that is by statute. We have to absorb all of those costs. If we want to, say, adopt an animal out after its stray time is up, we have to absorb the cost of spay, neuter, or let's say an animal comes to us and it's injured, we have to legally pay for that animal to receive veterinary care to prevent suffering. So it doesn't, it seems nice that here's your $150,000 check to service, say, the city of Urbana, but when you've impounded, 500 dogs and cared for all those dogs in addition to all the other calls that have come in, you've racked up significant costs that you're not recuperating.
Right, that makes sense. Thank you so much.
Any other questions for Chelsea? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right. Next is Mental Health Board, followed by Developmental Disabilities Board. Lynn Canfield.
Hi, I guess I have to have my glasses on. And you're not going to say stuff before?
Do you want me to?
I mean, I'm going to try really hard to be very concise. How about that?
Okay.
Okay. So,
Megan, turn the timer on for you.
I always want to talk to you about the little, like almost what's a rounding error in our budgets, because that's the stuff that we can be creative with. The majority of the money in this fund and the other fund are subcontracted essentially to agencies providing services which the community has told us are valuable to them, and which we apply some diligence and we expect the agencies to as well, find there is not other funding to support or not enough other funding to support. So Mental Health Board and DD Board money is really nice for filling in gaps for the larger systems. The larger systems claim responsibility for mental health and substance use and developmental disability services, but then don't fully fulfill those responsibilities, which is why Illinois has a rapidly growing number of county and township mental health boards. I don't think that's a good thing. I think that means the Illinois system is failing, and that communities are saying, well, we'll pay more just for the sake of our own people's wellness. So that's kind of the line that we walk. You had an interesting question earlier, which I could park it within the general philosophy of how we're funding agencies, and that is good at gaps and also good for short stabilization, because these funding systems and the service systems are not stable at all. So to be able to do advance payments, well, almost everything we're doing now is a grant contract. So everybody's payments go out first, it's all good faith, and then at the end of the year, if they haven't spent everything that the board initially approved, they might owe some money back. So you had heard a little bit about that earlier. Sometimes organizations are really paying attention to where they haven't spent, and they see that they might owe some money back, and then they start talking to us in April, May, or sadly June about what they could do with that money differently. But I am not a board member. I do not have the authority to say, sure, you can use that money for something else, but my board members do, and there's a defined process that we use. So sometimes we get these requests to, we weren't able to use the money for this, but because we had another fund that paid for it, but we would like to use the money for this. And the purpose you heard about earlier was, it is very well grounded in statute. I know that because I wrote that part of the legislation to make sure that we can offer some kind of stability to the workforce in these 2 realms or 3 realms. And it's also, we were very lucky, this particular request was also well defined in the Mental Health Board's priorities document. So the board chair had no problem saying, love it, let's do it. The organization actually asked us to put the brakes on it after this change was approved. So unfortunately, they'll be returning money back to us. We would rather it be used to serve the people, but this is, the way I think of these 2 funds is they are public trust funds established for very narrow purposes. They are created at the pleasure of the legislature, which can also take them away like that. Same with the taxpayers and you. So you do up or down on their budgets, and they control the innards of the budgets. So we are aware that these funds are a blessing, and we need to treat them like that. So we collect money back. It goes into one of 2 revenue lines. One is miscellaneous revenue, and it's getting smaller and smaller every year, but that's when money comes back from an organization a year later, because we don't ask for it right away. We tend to wait for audits to make sure that we're getting the right amount, and also to make sure through the audits that the organizations are financially healthy. So the majority of those return funds just go right back into offsetting the contributions and grants. Contributions and grants is the biggest line of each of these funds, and is also kind of the cause of chaos, even though living in 2 different fiscal years should be easy. I think of RPC and whatever, you might be up to infinity different fiscal years by now. I don't know how they do that, but we're stymied by just 2. So, but it causes, we've already obligated half of the money for next year through these contracts. There's language in the contracts that says if the money doesn't come, we're pulling out of the contract, but everybody, and you all too, know that the people on the other side of that are people who actually rely on services to be successful in their life. So we try really hard not to have to cancel a contract due to insufficient funds. Anyway, so that's the blah, blah, blah. But the things I really like to talk to you about are the little, like the 10%, what we're doing there, because that's usually been like our big expo and our sponsoring anti-stigma events. And we can't do any of that in the same way that we were doing for almost 20 years. We won't be able to do those the same way ever again. So we're in a really creative period right now of trying to figure out what we can do that's meaningful to people for raising awareness, especially about resources, because it's hard to know what is out there. And anyway, since we're not the primary funder of anything, it's even hard for us to know what's out there. So there's a lot of value for us in those 2 activities, the community education, anti-stigma, and then the resource information. And we do little things like educational opportunities for agencies or other interested parties. But these are very small pieces of the budget. So can I talk about 2026 for a minute? Sure. You probably noticed that we're only talking about 2 funds for 2027 and not 3. So at some point in 2026, I need to come back, or Travis might, and ask you to help us clear out the 3rd fund that we've had for several years. It holds money for a special purpose. We can still do all that stuff without the fund. It was established to take advantage of the slightly different statutory authorities of the 2 boards. We don't have any projects like that right now that require that combined authority. So we can do all the things without the 1 extra fund, which causes a lot of extra work and time for the finance department and the mental health board and DD board and you. So anyway, an example of government efficiency. So I should just stop talking and let you ask questions. Did I get? Yeah, they've asked about that?
No, I was just saying that's it.
Go ahead, Ellie.
You said that the 10%, the outreach that you're doing is not going to, it's going to be significantly different than it has been for years and years. Can you explain a little bit why that is?
Let me do it quickly. The architects of our annual disability resource event, 2 of them had moved away already. They are unable to do the work because of their own personal issues. It's also harder and harder every year because of things happening in the community. Like challenge anybody to find a weekend in October that they can get a big venue that's safe and affordable. So we're like, the whole fall and the whole spring seem impossible to us now, but the main person who did all that passed away. So we've also lost the institutional knowledge. And I'm not sure that it's we're gonna do a little survey and find out, is this the right fit for the community? Because since we started doing it, everybody else has put together resource fairs and expos, and so maybe what we need to be doing is supporting those. Anyway, the other stuff is we were hosting an anti-stigma film within the Ebert Fest for years and years, and that's all gone. But there are other film festivals, and they're smaller, and we can get more control over the film and do it for a lot less money. And we sponsor art shows, and we can do those for a lot less money. We're just not sure how do we get traffic to them. So there are a lot of very creative, smart people in my ear blasting me with ideas. So something will happen, but I don't know what it is yet.
Jenny.
Hey, Lynn. I'm going to second you that the resource fairs are kind of all around the community, and filling gaps, maybe it is something that was yours and now the community's doing. And I'm taking this time to plug the Scott Bennett Family Resources Day.
I will see you there on Friday.
That's right, at Lincoln Square Mall. Yep. So I did actually have a question about the resource fair, maybe the final one you did last year, because right beforehand, MTD had changed the buses.
Yes.
How did that end up working out?
Well, that's probably the main reason that we're not doing expos anymore, but I didn't want to say stuff, but I will. So it wasn't no shade on MTD. They were facing $1,300 a month of charges to pull into the property. I asked Marketplace, hey, could we pay you the $1,300 for just this 1 month so that MTD can safely bring people with disabilities to this thing that they do every year that many people with disabilities count on it? Nope. So, and I don't think MTD wanted to do that either. So that was our sort of last ditch. And then just a couple weeks before our event, someone did get hit by a car and die right there. So We paid a Champaign police officer to come over and hang out all day, and Dres donated shuttles for the day, which was really nice. That was a big contribution from Dres. And we had my staff out in the rain all day walking people across the street. So it worked out, but it was like, and then Marketplace gave us a big donation after that. So I think they knew that this was the end. So I just, and after that, we've had lots of suggestions of other venues to use, but nothing is as easy as a mall where there's like everybody knows where it is, and there's accidental traffic. People who weren't even thinking about that expo wander through. I like Lincoln Square for that. Yeah. So anyway.
Questions? Jenny Lockshin.
Not a question, just a comment. Having been serving, and I know we're talking mental health, kind of a combination of the special funds right now. Having been serving on the Developmental Disability Board for about a year now, I see all the work that goes into determining how the money that the county budgets here goes to organizations in the community, and I appreciate all of the work that both the Mental Health and Developmental Disability Board do to make sure that that money gets to the people who need it most.
I felt real bad for both boards this year. It was a very tough year for them. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hi, Lynn. How much would you say would be needed next year, like after 27, to be able to more comprehensively allot money to more organizations, or at least the ones that the board seems to favor?
Well,
have you thought about it?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I would like to say that on my way in, I met someone by the door and confessed to being intellectually lazy and predicting only doom. And so the answer is I've been doing it a long time, and it all depends on what's happening federally and at the state level. These are really large, expensive systems, and if they fail, the Mental Health Board and the DD Board can pick up pieces, but I don't even think it's fair to the taxpayers to be expected to pick up all the pieces. So I really push back on the state and federal. And I work with other people, and we have hired lobbyists to help us, push back. We're not going to put disabled people back in institutions. It costs 5 times as much money, and they die cruel, lonely deaths.
Right.
So, and their families are separated from them and have their own, Anyway, so I shouldn't talk about that because it's horrible, and I'm trying not to be intellectually lazy, but I would just say I don't know. I try to pay very close attention to what Medicaid can do, and Medicaid changes a little bit every year. Illinois was very lucky a couple of years ago, applied for some new Medicaid opportunities and got them, and was the first state in the country, and then the funding stopped for some of that stuff. It became, it just never came out. I think some of it was pilots that would not have affected our county anyway, but there were also things that Mental Health Board money's already been doing, and we know some of them are very successful and really help people stay well. So, it's just changing much more quickly than it used to. So I would say I'm less sure than ever how much money it would take to fill all the gaps.
Gotcha. Well, I appreciate you as always. So thank you. Thank you.
Any further questions for Lynn? Right, moving on. Right, Regional Planning Commission Operating Fund.
So for any of the new board members that don't know, Tammy used to run these legislative budget hearings, and she's missing it. So I'm going to let her babysit Delitzo during the RPC one, and I'm going to go take a little break. So she'll do wonderful.
Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Delitzo Solomoyo. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Champaign County Regional Planning Commission. This will be my 9th budget to present before the county board.
Good evening, Tammy Ogden. I'm the COO of the Champaign County Regional Planning Commission.
So thank you for the opportunity to present the FY 2027 budget. Tammy is here to chime in if I miss anything. So just to get into it, for the overall agency budget for FY 2027, we're presenting a $75,547,086. So, and last year was at $81,647,061, and I'll explain that a little bit later in terms of why that's gone down. And then as far as expenditures for FY 2027, we're looking at $75,792,796. This is representative of 380 FTEs. Just to note that we're not fully staffed. We constantly have vacancies in most of our programs, but 380 is what we budget for, but that doesn't represent what the actual staffing levels are for the Regional Planning Commission. The FY 2027 budget includes 7 funds. These accommodate 169 active departments, which would be 169 contracts and grants that we have on an ongoing basis. It represents federal, state, local government funds. So for the RPC, grants constitute about 97% of our total budget. As I pointed out earlier, in terms of the difference between the budget that we presented to you with the current budget, FY 26 budget, in comparison to the 27 budget, why that went down, that's due to the cash outlay that went towards the purchase of the new RPC administrative building, as well as due to costs associated with the ICERT training facility, which we're going to be beginning the build out for that this year. One thing to also share with the county board, I feel like the microphone is going in and out. It's not? It's good? Okay. Given the fact that we are primarily grant funded, majority, if not all of our grants are on a reimbursable basis, which means that we must pay for those eligible expenses first. So we provide the service and we incur the expense, and then we have to request for reimbursement from either the state of Illinois or from the federal government. And so the RPC needs to have working capital in order to cash flow the operations of the organization. So we don't come to the county to ask for, so far we haven't, to ask for assistance to pay for any of the expenses that we have while we're waiting for reimbursement. So we have to be able to cash flow the operation of the organization. It's critical for the Regional Planning Commission to have fund balances that assist us with the operation of the organization. On a monthly basis, we're looking at about $3.5 million in ongoing operation expenses. And again, a lot of that we're paying upfront as we're waiting to be reimbursed either by the state of Illinois or by the federal government. The next is Fund what is it now, 075? 2075. The total budget for 27 for FY 20 we're proposing is $32,867,754, with a fund balance of $3,038,149. This represents about 92 full-time equivalency. In this fund, this includes regional initiatives, our emergency rental assistance program, our planning division is in this fund, our developmental disabilities, and most of our social services, so LIHEAP, weatherization, our homeless prevention programs, they're all part of this fund. This fund is also utilized for administrative costs associated with the management of the Regional Planning Commission. So our fiscal team, our human resources team, Tammy, myself, we are all data and technology is all funded out of this fund. The fund balance includes $700,000 receivable. So when we had the emergency rental assistance program during COVID, there were some funds that were remaining, and based on the rules from the federal government, either we should have paid those funds back or we could have invested those funds in affordable housing. And there was a project in the city of Champaign that had a financing gap. And so we were able to work with them by providing to them a loan of $700,000, which would be payable in 2065. And this is the Parker Glen 2 affordable housing project. And so the fund balance, I think, reflects that payable, which won't happen fully until 2065. The proposed budget has decreased as well compared to FY26 budget, in part because the 26 budget included appropriation for the purchase of the administrative facility for the Regional Planning Commission. The other thing to note is also the shifting funding priorities may result in adjustments to program structures. Right now, at least at the federal level, we still are facing funding uncertainties. As you may know, Congress, both the House and the Senate, have passed continuing resolutions, but they're not similar. And so either they're going to have to negotiate in conference so that they're similar to avert a government shutdown when the new federal fiscal year begins on October 1st. So, and then this being a highly political year, we're not quite sure what Congress is going to do after the election in November. So we're paying very close attention to that, but that's the world that we live in, being that we are primarily grant funded. We are affected both by decisions made in Washington, D.C., as well as in Springfield. The third fund is our police training, and this is for FY27, we're looking at $1,131,549. This represents 3 FTEs, but right now we have 2, so we have 1 vacancy with a fund balance of $559,298. With this program, we are in 3 counties: Champaign County, Vermilion County, and Piatt County. We provide quality in-service training, career development opportunities for our law enforcement officials. So, you know, there's mandated training that our police officers are required to go through. And so we bring trainers from all over the country to provide training, primarily at ILEAS, but we tend to also move it around. Sometimes we provide training in Danville. The funding comes from the state's Traffic and Criminal Conviction Surcharge Fund, and it's a special fund which is part of the state's budget. And the training project operates under the authority of the Illinois Law Enforcement Training and Standards Board, and so their fund balance is pretty much restricted. We do have an advisory group that works with our staff, and we have representation from the Sheriff's Office, you know, City of Champaign, Urbana, the University, Parkland, and so forth that work with our staff. Our next fund is our Early Childhood Fund. For FY27, we're looking at $20,194,745, with expenditures of $20,194,745, and a fund balance of $2,571,582. This again represents FTEs of 237. We're not fully staffed. We have ongoing vacancies for this particular division. But this is our Head Start program. Primarily, we have federal funding, which is where the Head Start comes from, but we also have state funding, and then we do get local funding from Mental Health Board, as well as United Way and so forth. But the for FY27, we're looking at serving 392 preschoolers, as well as 299 infants, toddlers, as well as pregnant women. As you know, we did expand services for this program. Besides Champaign County, we're also in Ford, Iroquois, and Vermilion counties. One thing to highlight is that the division did successfully complete 2 monitoring visits that occurred in October of 2025, as well as March of 2026. We have been asked to go through a specialized training related to fiscal, I don't know if it's fiscal risk. We're not quite sure why we're selected, and so our staff will be attending that later on this year. The current fund balance is level. The current fund balance level is appropriate given the liability for compensated absences, significant delays in state reimbursements, and ongoing monthly cash flow requirements. The next fund is our ICERT fund. This is, again, the other initiative that we took on in 2023 from the University of Illinois. With this fund for FY27, we're budgeting $13,092,802, which is down from last year, which was at $16,746,076. And I'll explain a little bit later why. And we're looking at expenditures of $13,092,802, and with a negative fund balance of $271,683. This is the program where we provide training statewide to the folks that go through the Illinois Home Weatherization Assistance Program. This is a program where we go into low-income households. We do an assessment, we do an energy audit to try and determine how that home may be losing heat or air. And so we do a lot of retrofitting depending on what the outcome of that assessment or energy audit is. And it can include putting in new furnaces, insulation, and so forth. So we provide the training to folks that actually do the assessment. And so this is training provided to at least 35 organizations that are providing that service throughout the state of Illinois. So the budget includes the relocation of ICERT into a state-of-the-art training center that we're currently in negotiations for a lease. And our hope is that we will begin to, maybe Tammy, you can touch on that, we will begin to do the renovations.
We've got a 3-phase plan, and we're expecting to begin phase 1 renovations later this year. And then phase 2 and 3 will happen next year. So the location is at Glen Park, the former Planet Fitness in Champaign. And it's just under $6 million renovation project that's being funded by the state.
The fund balance, again, due to timing of reimbursements from federal and state agencies. And I know for those that are on our commission, like the county executive and Chair Locke, when we present our financials, we do highlight this particular fund and another one that I'm going to present on. And typically, we're seeing sometimes up to $1 million, if not more, of funds that were owed by the state. And again, services are not stopping due to the fact that we're being owed these funds by the state. So we have to, cover those expenses somehow, and that's why those fund balances are critical to keep operations going. And this is going to be key as we really get into the renovations, because we're not really building from ground up, but the renovations of the space for the training facility. The next is our workforce development. This is Fund 2110, and we're looking at, for FY27, a budget of $6,335,386. So it's a little bit up compared to last year, with expenditures of $6,335,386. Again, a fund balance deficit of $247,146, and it represents 13 staff. The Workforce Development Division plays an important role in helping residents connect to employment, job training, as well as community services. So we work both with job seekers as well as with employers. The deficit fund balance is due to timing of reimbursements, just similar to the previous fund that I just presented on. And so it's the timing of reimbursements from the federal as well as state agencies. Same thing with this. At times we've seen the fund balance deficit getting to a negative $1 million. In 2026, the delayed completion of the FY24 audit resulted in a temporary suspension of some reimbursements. So there were some programs we will continue to provide services, but we were not able to draw down funds from the state until the audit was completed, and then we were able to get reimbursed for those expenditures. And then into our loan funds, this is Fund 2474. The revenue total for this is $8,050,000 with expenditures of 44. I'm sorry, 8,000. I'm used to the millions. 8,050 with expenditure total of 44,500 and fund balance of 683,161. So this is the intermediary revolving loan fund, which is from the United States Department of Agriculture. We had to borrow these funds from USDA in order for us to make these loans to businesses that are in communities that have a population of less than 25,000 people. And so we use these funds to assist financing businesses, economic development, and then this helps to create and as well as retain jobs in disadvantaged as well as in remote communities. The fund balance includes approximately $292,000 in outstanding loans, and resulting in an actual available cash being lower than the reported fund balance. The fund balance also includes federal and local matching funds required for eligible recipients of this initiative. The last fund is Fund 2475, and for FY27, we're looking at $1,916,800 with expenses of $2,087,500 and a fund balance of $5,920,618. So there are quite a few funds that are accommodated in this particular fund. It is a restricted revolving loan portfolio that complies with all federal and state requirements for the advancement of economic opportunity with, again, the job creation and retention requirements. One of the things to highlight that's part of this is the Champaign County Community Development Corporation, which is was created, I think, in the 90s, maybe. And the RPC is a member, as well as some of our major banks, such as Bank of Champaign, Bank Champaign, Busey Bank, Central Illinois Bank, Chase Bank, First Midwest Bank, Midland States Bank, as well as PNC Bank. Again, with this, we also make loans to small businesses. However, those businesses have to get at least 51% of financing from conventional loan from a bank, and then we come behind that through the CDC. The fund also includes capital improvement funds for the early childhood program, and given the federal limitation, so if we spend more than $250,000 on capital improvements on a Head Start facility using grant dollars or federal dollars, then the federal government will have a federal interest on that building. Meaning, if we try to sell the building, if we try to do anything with the building, we cannot do that without the authorization of the federal government. And so, having funds set aside for capital improvement helps us to do that, particularly when there are non-federal funds. As of this time of the presentation, $2.3 million of the fund balance is currently committed to outstanding loans that have been made to businesses. Anything you might want to highlight? Okay. Take any questions?
Questions for DeLizzo? I know he was very thorough, but there's got to be some questions. Beth?
Have the Advocates for Aging contacted you at all about funding for their initiative recently?
No, not to my knowledge, no.
Would that be an appropriate position or path for them to take to see about getting assistance for funding elder care in the county?
For us to fund them?
For them to approach you for a possible amount?
Well, not sure if I understand the question. So most of our funding is for specific programs. So we don't really have discretionary funding
Right.
that can go to, other needs in the community. So it's pretty much for specific programs or projects.
Okay.
Now, if it's a matter of assisting with looking for, grant funds that might be out there, I'm not sure if we have the capacity, but we may be able to look into that. But as far as the Regional Planning Commission itself, we don't have discretionary funding that could go towards that initiative.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Delissa? I guess you got off very lightly. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Travis is going to run through the balance, and most of these should be fairly brief, although I'm sure I'll be talking a little bit about public safety sales tax, and it'd be good to hear it. Go ahead, Travis.
Yeah, as Steve just mentioned, most of these should take not much time at all. So the first one is court construction. This is a fund that has been around. Every year we budget expenditures to eat up the rest of the fund balance, but there are no projects currently planned. So we have it budgeted in case something comes up. If not, it will roll over, and next year it will be budgeted to eat up the fund balance. The Courthouse Museum, this is one where the fund was established to maintain the museum area with a focus of Abraham Lincoln. Every year we budget $5,000. Some years none of it's spent. Very rarely has it been spent to the $5,000, but it gives them freedom to use it if needed. So more than likely, 26's budget, the $5,000 won't be spent. Whatever they don't spend will roll back into fund balance, and so on. And it looks the same pretty much every single year. Public safety sales tax. This is one where between now, this presentation, and the time the budget gets adopted, it could change quite drastically. Over the last few years, the board has asked us to budget. Last year, I think it was $1.8 million. The year before, $2 million transfer into the general fund to help with the deficit in the general fund. That transfer is currently not budgeted. If, as we go through the special board meeting in September and October, the board feels that the general fund needs the help from public safety sales tax, it might get added in. The two main expenditures in public safety sales tax are the debt service. There's one bond remaining for the courthouse, and the jail improvements, the other big bond that started in 2022. The county has that can't be spent. So nearly 2.6 million, just under $2.7 million, that is reserved. So the fund balance you're seeing of $9 million, you have to subtract that 2.7 million out, and that's what you actually have to be able to spend. And again, if the county the board decides to spend a $2 million transfer to the general fund to help out, then the fund balance will drop even further. The other big expenditure in public safety sales tax is the transfer into CARF for public safety related software, equipment, buildings. And the next slide is about CARF, so I'm going to jump into there. CARF is what we use to fund items that need to be replaced over time. Computers, roofs, any kind of equipment, vehicles for the general fund, and public safety sales tax as well. So the county has a schedule of items that need to be replaced. Some years, depending upon the timing, the transfer or the needs are really large that year. Some years it is not as large. In 27, it's much smaller than last year, and that's for a couple of reasons. One, just due to timing of when things need to be replaced. But another thing is because of the issues that we're having with the general fund, departments, facilities especially, is using their equipment longer. So we're deferring many replacements that might have happened in 27. We're going to defer it to 28 or 29 and use that longer. So we won't have to spend it in 27 until we figure out what we're going to do with the budget and the general fund in particular. Another big discussion with CARF that I want to bring up. So as I mentioned, public safety sales tax has, the last few years, done a large transfer into the general fund to help cover items that the general fund's paying for that could be covered with public safety sales tax. One idea that I've worked with or talked to the sheriff about is potentially moving the sheriff's squad car replacements and the Axon contract to CARF. That way, the transfer could be made from public safety sales tax and ease the general fund. Squad cars depends upon the year, but that's a lot of money, and the Axon contracts like $410,000. So if we did that, we probably would no longer need to make the yearly transfers from public safety sales tax to the general fund, and it would be very clear and easy to understand what we're spending the public safety sales tax funds on, a little bit easier. That said, we would then have to really watch the fund balance of public safety sales tax going forward. Instead of making an annual decision of what that transfer would be, we would have to plan out a little bit further ahead to know if we're running out of fund balance or the fund balance is getting low, what we would need to do in that case. So as of right now, the squad cars and Axon contract are still budgeted in the sheriff's budget, not CARF, but that's something that I'm really considering potentially moving to CARF. Any questions on public safety sales tax, CARF, before I fly through the remaining of the slides? Okay, the next two are very similar. The IMRF fund is the retirement fund. The two sources of revenue for that fund are the property tax levy and then $124,000 set aside from PPRT, the personal property replacement tax. Those go into revenue. We pay our IMRF cost, our retirement cost out of this fund. Each year I kind of see what the fund balance is and I can tweak the tax levy either up or down to cover if we need more or less fund balance. When that's tweaked, it's the general fund that then either takes the extra money or takes the hit if IMRF needs more. Social Security is the exact same thing, except for Social Security instead of IMRF. And it doesn't have the $124,000 from PPRT. It's just the property tax levy. Tort immunity, this pays for workers' comp, unemployment insurance, and an allocated share of insurance premiums and claims for the general fund. Until 2022, this fund did not really have much of a fund balance. Tammy Ogden worked really hard over the years to get that fund balance up in case of an emergency, if there were any big claims that were made. So now it's in a much healthier spot. Self-funded insurance is the insurance that the county has for auto, property, and general liability claims. Again, Budgeting this is very difficult because it depends upon the claims, and claims could take 2 to 3 years to actually come through and hit. So if anything big would happen in this fund, it would most likely have to come back to the board as a BUA. We kind of usually budget this fund similar to how it's been budgeted in prior years, and then if an emergency or a huge claim comes, then we come back to the board and ask for more appropriation. But the fund balance is in good shape here, and but again, it's one that we need to keep fairly high in case there's large claims. I think that's the last of the slides today for the special revenues. Any questions?
Travis, I think I missed a question from member Lockshin about court construction. So,
oh, I'm sorry.
I have to find my page again. I'm sorry. This was back on the courthouse construction fund, page 127 of today's portion of the packet. Is the balance of that, is that going to be used in the courthouse project that was approved to go to bid?
Yeah, I don't know if that's been officially decided, but it was my intent to bring that up and try to use it for that, because I'd rather just close this fund out as soon as we can, and it seems like a decent thing to use it on.
Yes.
But nothing's been officially decided, so it doesn't show, or, well, so.
No, I know we were just approved the RFP to go out last week, so it's one that is still pending, but yes, it seems like one that can be closed if this was created in 1999.
Yes, I would agree.
Has such a low balance.
Yes.
Okay, Dan, go ahead.
Okay, so, in the mention of the moving the squad car to CARF, you mentioned that there would be more transparency about where the PSST is applied to. Why is that? Why would that be more transparent as to where it's going?
So, if this was in CARF and the transfer from public safety sales tax went to CARF, you would see that it was spent on squad cars and Axiom contract. If we just transfer it to the general fund a big portion of the general fund is public safety eligible expenditures, but really that transfer could pay for any of those expenditures, and this would show exactly what that transfer was paid that transfer for, instead of just a general, we had $15 million in eligible expenditures, so we transferred $1.5 million in to help cover it.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. You also mentioned a little bit towards the end of that slide, the CARF slide, that we would have to plan out further ahead than year of to allocate PSST to general fund. I didn't get exactly what would cause that.
So it would actually be from PSST to CARF instead of general fund. So currently, the last few years anyway, as we've been having our discussions and seeing what needs the general fund has in order to make up the deficit, the board has decided on a dollar amount to transfer from public safety sales tax to the general fund. But it's on a year-to-year basis. So if public safety sales tax fund balance is dropping a lot, the board could decide, oh, we don't need to make that transfer this year. But if we have these assigned expenditures in CARF, those would be kind of assigned going forward forever. So we would just have to look year after year to see what the fund balance is in public safety sales tax and know that we have these expenditures that we have to transfer. And if the fund balance is dropping a lot, we might have to make contingency plans on how to help cover these squad cars, whether moving them back to the general fund or something. So instead of a year by year decision by the board, it would be it would be on a go forward basis. So a little less flexible, I guess.
And just to clarify a little bit, because I'm just confused and it's not your fault. So you're saying that to transfer to CARF, it would create that expense every year, or the CARF expenditure line item would transfer every year? Sorry.
So in the sheriff's general fund budget, we have every year we have budgeted these squad cars.
Gotcha.
So if we move those to CARF, they would be budgeted the exact same way every year, except in the general fund, they would be budgeted in CARF.
Oh, okay. Nope, that makes sense now.
You got it?
Yeah, got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So is that just specific to PSST money, or would that apply to other vehicle funding line items in other budgets for other departments also?
A lot of vehicles are already funded in CARF. Sheriff's vehicles, because there's so many and they have so many specific needs, they've not really been funded in CARF. He's just done it through his budget. But after talking with him, he would if we did it through CARF to make this transfer, he would still have control. He would still order the cars and what he needs and everything. So it would simply to answer your question, it would just be the sheriff's squad cars in this scenario. But most of the other cars that aren't sheriff's are already in CARF.
Okay, thanks.
Any further questions for Travis? Thank you very
Michelle
much.
has
Oh,
something.
Michelle, go ahead.
I just want to, throw out the caveat of we continue to find things that are not in CARF that should be in CARF. So honestly, I think for the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to get sick of us hearing, hey, we want to add this to CARF. We want to add this to CARF. It should have been in CARF. If we're applying the same expectations of all the departments, and also just trying to have a cohesive, unified purchasing policy and expectation. But I think that honestly, there's not a couple months that go by and we find something else that we're like, why isn't this in CARF? Like, because someone comes in a panic, I need to replace this. And we're like, what is it? We've never heard of it. It's not in CARF, So you're just going to hear that a lot. I think it does make more sense. It gives you a much better picture. We have a much more realistic expectation and budget, but it increases our CARF budget significantly to the point where, it is going to outweigh our general spending because all of our big expensive things are in CARF, so.
And to add on to that, finance staff is working to add a module in our ERP system, Tyler Munis, to start tracking assets and CARF specific, both assets and CARF items, because in the past it's just been done on a spreadsheet. And like Michelle said, every year someone comes and says we need to replace this and it hasn't been tracked. So by doing it in our accounting system should be a lot easier once we are able to get the time and everything to get everything added in initially. So
Seeing no further questions, go ahead, Jenny.
This is not a question for Travis. Do you want us to leave the room set for tomorrow?
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Yeah.